I'm used to, we have one mutton, you guys have three, so it's just bear with me. So we're going to get started at 10:01. I just want to recognize that the board recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. So first off, just approval of the agenda. Any changes to the agenda? All in favor? Moved by Mayor O'Brien, second by Director Rogers. All in favor and passes. Adoption of the minutes. Are there any errors or omissions in the minutes? Seeing none, I'm going to assume that the minutes are adopted by consent. Presentations, and then Mr. Vanderhorst. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everybody. I've got a short presentation. I don't have a formal PowerPoint or everything for this one. We'll go from the paper, but I believe you would have in your packages a copy of the financial statements for the water service. I'll take you through a couple of quick points, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions. You do have an audit findings report. I'm only going to highlight one item from the audit findings, other than the fact that we're providing a clean audit opinion. But the number for materiality, which is important to the audit, is something to draw your attention to. That number for Arrowsmith Water Service is $200,000. So it's calculated as a percentage of the total assets being managed there. That's consistent with the prior year. And so that drives the amount of testing that we're going to do when you look at some of the expenses and expenditures there. On the statements themselves, at a really high level, if you look at the statement of financial position, there are financial assets, $543,000 due from the joint venture participants, and the tangible capital assets being managed there, $6.4 million. No change in the capital assets over the year for Arrowsmith. The next page shows the spend for 2023. So you can see there, and it shows the breakdown between Parksville, Qualicum Beach, and the RDN. So you can see total spending of $189,000, up about $10,000 from the prior year. You know, not unexpected with inflation and other things and costs, but broken down between $82,000 of admin, $42,000 in operations, and just shy of $61,000 in maintenance, and then covered by the contributions from each of the members. So at the end of the year, there is an accumulated surplus of $7 million. That's $6.4 million of the capital asset value and $500 to be paid in per the joint venture agreement. So that's the really quick version of these statements. A big thank you to staff at the city, Marley and the finance team for putting the financial statements together and going through the audit process.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vanderhorst. Are there any questions for the delegation? Seeing none, then I assume we should be doing the two staff recommendations. Do you want to do them together or? Okay, so we'll just move the first and second together as one block. Mr. Grenz moving, Councillor Grenz moving, Director Rogers seconding. All in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Vanderhorst. And thank you as well to City of Parksville staff for doing all the work to help the audit be so smooth. And then the last thing is number 5, Mr. Doiron giving an update on operations. I'm very sorry if okay, there we go.
So Arrowsmith Water Service operations update, June 2024. So this is the snow pillow gauge. Right now, there is no more snowpack. It wasn't a good year for snow. Right now, we're at 0 centimeters of snow. The dam itself, we're still spilling over, so it looks like we're a little better than last year. With the rain that's in the forecast, we're thinking that the spillover might last another week and a half or so. Projects, operations, and maintenance activities. So we've completed our Arrowsmith Dam inundation study. We've had a meeting with the consultant. We're all on track for that. The provisional operating rule, we've completed this week, and we plan to present that to the province tomorrow for their feedback. Operations maintenance activities, the dam operation maintenance surveillance manual was updated. We had a dam safety review report finalized by Stantec. We started the weekly inspections, I think it was about a month and a half ago. The dam emergency plan was updated. Utility staff management attended a presentation detailing the structure of the DEP. We also had a mock exercise with emergency management. That went well. We're going to have another one in September. Piezometer reading gauge was leaking gas. It has to be sent out for repairs. So that guy is the guy that tells us if there's something going on with the structure of the dam. So it's a very important piece of instrument that we need to repair. There was new cameras that were added in 2023. They were on the right track on the system, but the cameras are communicated back to Public Works by radio. So, and it's not working out. We could hardly get on we hardly get a picture of the dam when it does work. So we're exploring other ways to transmit the dam back to Public Works. Do you have a question? We're good. The fence around the radio repeater is to be replaced. There's a high risk for damage to it by animals and stuff. The guys are out there this week with the contractor, and we should have that done in a couple of weeks. The dam inundation study, the contract was awarded to Tetra Tech. We had the startup meeting. Right now, the draft report and final report to be completed. Like I said, we had a meeting with them not too long ago, and the project expect to be finalized in August. The provisional operating rule. This is where we have to maintain a certain flow in the Englishman River to for the fish and to maintain our intake of what we can take out of the Englishman River. Like I said, KWL just finished their work, and we're presenting that to Walrus. We're sending it off to them tomorrow, and we should hear back to them next week if the report and the operating tool will be accepted by the provinces. And that's all I got for you.
Thank you very much. So on the first part, for the operations update, are there any questions from members of the board? Mayor O'Brien, please.
Thank you, Chair. To Simon, the provisional operating rules and so forth, you're saying you're submitting that to the province tomorrow? And,
yes.
And when, just to clarify, when will we hear back from the province?
So the province, when the river got, sorry, through the chair, when the province got, or the province asked us when we got to 2.0 meters cube per second going by the monitoring station at the bridge, they wanted to have a meeting with us. It so happened that the KWL report and operating tool, or I think it's a calculation tool it's called, was finished at about the same time. So we're hoping to have the province come or meet with us before we reach the 1.6, which is the minimum we're allowed to or maintain in the river. So I'm hoping next week the province is going to get back to us and say yay or nay.
So then in the meantime, if I may follow, in the meantime, then we will, if we are into release period, like we're spillover right now, which is kind of incredible, as to say going into July. That's good news that we're going to maintain the volume in that dam for a little bit longer. It would be great. But so in the meantime, when you do start to release, then do you work at go on the lower rate or on the higher rate?
No. So I've talked to the head operator about this. If the province doesn't get back to us before they agree to the KW report,
right,
we're going to maintain the 1.6. We're not going to go below the 1.6. We just don't want to, be off in the wrong foot with them.
Yes.
before they give us a decision on what we're proposing to them.
That's good. Good news. The Habitat will be happy with that.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Simon.
And that more or less sums up any questions I might have had. So
Okay.
there is seeing no other questions at this time. Mr. Director Rogers, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, through you, to Simon. With respect to the challenges with communicating the information back from the dam, I can see that as being a valuable tool. And it likely will have to replace it. Do you have any cost estimates on that? Will it significantly impact your budget?
Through the chair. So this was not something we wanted. This was a regulatory requirement that the last inspection, they're requesting, hey, you guys got to get, eyes on that dam. So the last report I read was that they were the AWS was working on a solution to this. It kind of fell by the wayside. We have a contractor going up next week to test the system for us and to get a design and see how much the cost is going to be. But there is money in the budget for this. We're just not sure right now if it's going to be enough or it's going to be too much.
So, but you do think you'll be able to get a solution so that you can have eyes on the dam on a regular basis?
It's not, the power is the issue. It's the power is the issue of operating the camera, and because of the winter time, if you run it off a battery, the battery's got to go dead because it would be powered up by solar. So what we're looking to do and see if it's possible, if we can use the gen set on site, the existing gen set, to top up the battery when there's no sun. And then we should be able to have communications 24/7, 365.
Thanks very much.
Okay, so I'm assuming now we're okay to move on to letter B, just to double check. And that would be the LiDAR Snow water equivalent report. And that's Mr. Walters. Sorry to summarily dismiss you, Simon. And Mr. Walters, when you're ready.
Thank you. We're all about efficiency here, Thanks for the opportunity to chat about this. I won't take long, but I think this is really a step change in our ability to know how much water we've got in the mountains, which is not only quite relevant to the AWS, but it's super relevant to, basically everybody else who uses water that's stored as snow, particularly our partners to the south in Nanaimo. So just take a few minutes and go through this thing. How do I make it go to the next one? There we go. And I'll apologize for the rather plain nature of these slides. I just threw this together real fast. So there's a project that was carried out between a few academic institutions, VIU, UNBC, the Hakai Institute, and the province, to look at how they could get better modeling of snow pillows all over the province. And through our drinking water and watershed protection program, we got invited to partner with this about 5 years ago. And we've contributed from the DWWP budget over $200,000 over that 5 years to make this work. And I guess we're probably an equal partner in that first part, and we're poised to be a rather minor partner in the next part, but I'll get to that in a second. So what this is, those of you who haven't heard about it, maybe you all have, but the research group has a plane that's fitted out with LiDAR, which is basically really accurate radar. So they fly over the watersheds. Ours is just one of them. They look at a couple on Vancouver Island and then in Metro Vancouver as well. They fly over the lands in the summertime. They get a really good, accurate surface. They take into account the trees and things like that. And then they go back in the winter and fly it when it's covered in snow. And when they do some fancy math on that, they can tell you how much snow is there. And they couple that with visiting the sites a few times a year, looking at the snow in detail to get the density. So if you know how much snow there is and how dense the snow is, you know how much water there is in there. So they talk about snow water equivalent is the big term. So the research project was completed last fall, 2023, but there was a bit of money left over. And the group, through Bill Floyd, who's the VIU rep on that research team, said, there's enough money here, let's do one more flyby. So they did it in April. And they kicked out a week later, a 4-page report for us, which I've copied a few bits into this so you can see what it's like. So the big red picture, that's the snow water equivalent map of all the lakes up high where our lake is. Arrowsmith is labeled there. Red is kind of no snow. And if there was some blue, that would be lots of snow. So you can see on April 5th, there wasn't much snow left up there. And the little graphs on the right-hand side, the top one's for Fishtail Lake and then Arrowsmith Lake. They show sort of where the snow is at what elevations and things at that time. This is a graph of all the research that's been done since 2020, looking at the snow water equivalent at various stages of the winter in thousands of millions of cubic meters, I guess. And you can see various years, and some are really high, like I think that's probably 2022, the top one. 2023 is the gray one. Purple 2020, that's the first year. And that green single point is this year in April. So very low, as Simon already mentioned. There wasn't much snow. This is not part of the actual work that was done there, but this is bought from a sat photo provider just to give a visual of what it looked like up there. So April 4th on the left, April 19th on the right. Not a lot of snow left up there. Snow's obviously the white stuff. Yeah. And then we get into the interesting stat that came out of this. And I mean, there's mean snow depth and density and stuff like that, and the percent uncertainty. But the key is these last two columns. So using our snow pillow station, which we have up near the dam, that data predicted there was 68% of the average snow water equivalent, where the LiDAR said there was only 34%. And I'm betting that the LiDAR is a lot more accurate than a single point on the snow pillow station. So, what this tells us is that while we're getting good trend data from our snow pillow station, it's probably not super accurate in terms of how much water is stored in snow up there, which is the same problem all over the province. So this is not a thing that's unique to us. The whole province uses those snow pillow stations to try and predict how much water there is. BC Hydro bases all of their reservoir management on those stations. So, the research that these guys are doing has far and wide ranging implications for all sorts of things, not just our little dam and stuff. And this was Bill Floyd's quote, just straight from the report, basically just highlighting the difference between the 68% and the 35%. And it's interesting to note for our situation, we have such a small watershed around our lake anyway, that the water stored as snow at the end of winter, while it's nice to have some up there, it's not a big feature of our stored water plan compared to people like the city of Nanaimo, for instance, who have a massive watershed, and the amount of snow that's stored in their watershed at the end of the snow season can be multiples of what they have in the reservoir. For instance, Metro Vancouver, the same sort of thing. So it's just good to keep that in a bit of context. And then last, I just noted some things here. So that group of researchers is sort of loosely collected in a group called the Coastal Hydrology Research Lab. They've got some more funds from other partners. Metro Vans is a big contributor to the next phase of this, as is the province. And they're looking at getting into a lot more watersheds in more detail to help with other things. I think there's good value in being able to operationalize this information as we develop our operating rule with AWS, because we do depend on knowing how much snow there is at the end of winter to estimate in our new model that we got from KWL to estimate what our base flow is likely to be as the year progresses. So I think the information is helpful. The research group hasn't actually nailed down what they're going to ask people to contribute to keep the research going. So DWWP is planning to get back involved in this in the bulk side of it. And I'm wondering once the Coastal Hydrology Research Lab gets their stuff together, whether there will be an opportunity for AWS to contribute some amount of money financially to this group so that we could actually get this kind of 4-page report once or twice a year from them as a sort of added extra to the research they're doing. So don't have a firm proposal from them yet, but I thought I'd flag it now and we can bring it back to the board possibly in the fall when they have something a little bit more arranged. I think that's all I had. Yeah.
Okay, so that's definitely all you had. Are there any questions for Mr. Walters? Councillor Grants first, then Mayor O'Brien.
Thank you, Chairson. Question through to our delegation is, obviously data is critical for anything we're doing in terms of decision making. When we're looking at the reference point on any of this data, which is the average, can you speak a little bit about, and maybe this is going a little bit beyond your expertise, but do you know what when we're looking at those averages, what the range is and how accurate the data is going into that average? Because we're continually improving our ability to gather accurate data, but you kind of get what I'm getting at
Yeah,
there?
I think I do.
Yeah.
So our data confidence in the last 5 years is really high. And there was error bars on that one graph that showed, you know, the confidence in the data, and they were quite tight. I can make that come back, but there were, I got a paper copy here. I can leave it with you anyway, but the error bars are pretty tight on the data that's derived from the LiDAR. Unfortunately, beyond that 5 years, we just have that one snow pillow station and we don't have the ability to put error bars on that. So if you were to look at, that's the one, thank you. So you can see that the error bars are not that great. So, you know, we have pretty good data confidence there. And I think if you tried to do some statistical analysis that maybe these guys have done, but I haven't, on the single station snow pillow data over a longer period of time, or even amongst this 5 years, I think you would find that there is a pretty huge error bar in the single station one, which doesn't perfectly answer your question, but it gives you some idea of what the.
Thank you. I mean, I guess it kind of just confirms the general thrust of where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
But obviously we want to have a good reference point in order to know what's kind of normal and how we need to adjust to any straying from that normality. Perhaps a follow-up would be, do you see you're foreshadowing the possibility of maybe asking for additional funding to get regular reporting? Do you see the province perhaps stepping in and gathering this data across the province and sharing it to organizations such as AWS?
Yeah, I really do see that. I think the point of this and the reason why the province is involved in funding it is that eventually they're going to be doing this as a province-wide service. You know, like the snow pillow stations are, for the most part, not all of them, but a lot of them, most of them are provincially funded and run out there now. And I think the long-term objective, if I could read into a little bit of what the people from the province that contributed in the first place was that they'd like to get to the point where they can fly the province a few times and make this available, you know, on the province's GIS map for people to look at. And then that point, then you need guys like the people who did this research study or somebody to go and do the physical testing to get the snow densities down, you know. So I think that is the ultimate objective. And right now it's just one plane. It's based in Prince George, and they can fly an awful lot of territory in 3 or 4 days. It just needs to be cloud-free days, which kind of limits when you can do it. But yeah, I think that is the point, though.
So thank you for that. I would just say that hopefully there's opportunity to think about what the right model is for paying for this stuff, and that we don't necessarily jump on and saying we're going to start paying for it. And then now the province is like, oh, great. Now everybody just pay for it. And yeah.
If I could just make one last comment on that, I think I'm hopeful where this is going to go is that we would be able to, as an organization, to pony up a very small amount of money to get the people that are doing the work to just derive a report for us. So we wouldn't pay for the actual flying of the plane or any of that stuff, but we would pay some additional funds to them to maybe confirm the density of the snow and to interpret the data, because we obviously can't interpret the data, but that's kind of what I was thinking. I'm kind of thinking maybe it's going to be like $5,000-$10,000 or something. I mean, I have no idea what it is going to be, but I imagine it would be something like that.
And Mayor O'Brien, I believe you were next.
Thanks, Chair. And Murray, I agree that the LiDAR looks like it's going to be the way to go. And the economies of scale says that the plane can cover a lot of territory while it's up in the air on a clear day over British Columbia. And for the province to actually be, you know, the major funder of that, because they're the ones that are going to be taking the data from those flights. And then we can be participants and whatever. But I'm pleased to see exactly that our costs could possibly include the technologists anyways to analyze that data once it gets down on the ground here to us and give us a report, because those people are going to be doing the same for all other regions in the province as well as hydro would find this very beneficial as well. So I say, yeah, great. Yeah, I'm glad, you know, you've taken advantage of what they've been offering so far. It's given us a good goalpost to start from. With the existing snow pillow stations, they serve their need with the technology that was available to it. But I understand that it would appear to me that they're probably going to end their life usefulness pretty soon, and we're going to switch over to the LiDAR system, which is going to be a lot more accurate. So that's great. And I'm pleased that we should, as Councillor Grens has suggested, working with the province anyways to make sure that we can, if there's some seed money that's required anyways to be provided through ourselves. And I think we should be very willing to move that way as long as it's reasonable, and that we can certainly justify it. And then it will actually change how we interpret that data in a lot more accurate manner. So I think it's going to be a win for everybody. So definitely we'll have to look at that and just look forward to whatever presentation you can bring to us, Murray, anyways, as to what that cost looks like, and then we can look at it at our budget and get that included in. But yeah, thank you for checking into this. It's a very worthwhile venture. Thank you.
Thanks. Director Rogers.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, through you to Mr. Walters. Again, Marie, thanks very much for this presentation. The information that references the change from 68% to 34% and so on, that is something that we want to be able to keep on top of and so on, be aware of, and it's good information for our public to have. So based on my own background and so on, my own work experience, I certainly support the LiDAR approach to this thing, and recognize that it should be something that we encourage the province to do on a provincial-wide basis. And like Mayor O'Brien and Councillor Grens, I really think that we do want to keep on top of some ability to have some regular report backs as they come available with respect to Arrowsmith for ourselves. So, but thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if Mr. Walters wants to respond, and if not, I'll just do my question or two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the thing I think we should also bear in mind is that the LiDAR data isn't just, as Mr. Walters mentioned briefly, it's not just for municipal water services. It's 91% of our power grid. 91% of BC's power grid is hydroelectric. So it's very much in the province's interest to have access to this LiDAR data to see the actual water volume that they have in their snow cap, as opposed to an arbitrary measurement. And as someone who grew up in the northern interior, I can tell you snow density can vary significantly in different types of snowfalls. And so you can have a icy crust with underneath it just light powder, completely different snow density the time it's been drenched by unseasonal rain, and then it's incredibly hard to lift. The density of water within that same volume is markedly different. Now, just when I'm looking at this data, I mean, obviously you're looking at 2020. It doesn't help that they're all blue, but when you're looking at 2020, you know, you have that error variance of essentially 1 million cubic meters. But I'm curious, did they test water density at other periods of time when they're doing the LiDAR studies? So clearly they did it for the recent April update, but the only reason I'm mentioning this is a annus horribilis for our snow cap. Yeah. This is like the worst possible year. So were they doing that in the other years as well?
Yeah. So every time they do a flyby, Bill straps on his skis and he goes up there and they do a density check of the areas. So, and they don't do it just one point because it's not, they check at the snow pillow station, obviously, because that's key to correlating it, but they do a whole bunch of them spread at different places to try and pick up different parts of terrain and different weather exposures. Yeah, they're scientists. They got a lot of data, those guys. And they like to ski tour, so it's really fits well into their. And you know, one other thing you highlighted there, which is really important to realize, is with climate change and what we're expecting to see happen, and what I think we're already seeing happen is, you know, generally there's going to be a lot less snow all over the province and a lot more rain. So, you know, getting a handle on this data, being able to sort of predict trends and things, I think is going to be really important to the power grid, as you say, more so even than to our water supply.
And the financial ramifications too, how BC Hydro operates, and then what peak season is for electricity demand. We're getting really off topic here. But anyways, it is something where the province has a definite vested interest. So to Councillor Grenz's point that we don't want to accept the full financial responsibility, and the province says, this is what everyone should do. That's maybe not the model we want to see. But the only other question I have, and maybe it's perhaps more for Simon than for yourself, and my apologies, Simon, if I missed it when you were here. So when we're talking about, this gives us a clear idea of the total volume of water essentially in the snow cap before we have to start making decisions about dam flow. So it's very, very useful data to have. Now, when we're looking at that report, which is eventually going to be talking, because for me, the stumbling block why we've had all these water restrictions is the capacity of the dam, how much water is in the dam. It's not so much how much water we're using, it's how much storage capacity we have. And so the reason where I'm sort of going is, when we're looking at that report, which is going to say, here's the amount of water we need to set with the province moving forward. Definitely this gives us an idea of how much water we can reasonably expect if we have a few years of this LiDAR data, that I think they'll really give a really strong data set to the province for the water we have. But then how much water ostensibly is for the ecosystem, right? Is why we have those high water levels. Are we also looking at how much water does the ecosystem actually need? Because I'm not sure we've done an analysis of that. Is that more Simon's bailiwick or Mr. Walters? My apologies.
I'll take a go at that
Sure.
if you want. And I look to Simon because I know he hasn't been here very long, and he's learning the history, but you know, and Bob's here too, so he'll have a good sense of that. So, but I know we've kind of been at that exact topic with, you know, the province in trying to develop this POR thing, and you know, the POR, the provisional operating rule, we're trying to get away from having to negotiate with the province every year on that. And that's part of the reason why we've got this modeling that's been done with KWL. And there's been a lot of work done in the past about what the minimum ecological flow need is in the river. So the work that KWL has done is based on that. So we haven't redone the science. And I think the province, I think they're okay with the science. They haven't given us an indication that they don't like the science there. So I think, you know, it is really key that we can maintain those ecological flows, because that's what is by doing that, that gives us our allocation of water for the ERWS, right? So if we can't maintain our ecological flow needs, we're not going to be able to withdraw water from the river, and we're going to have to do something about it. So I think that's all taking us to the future somewhere on it. That's a different topic, but yeah, we definitely have the science there of how much water we need. And, you know, the provinces, they're plugged into that. When we meet with them over the POR, like their fish people are in the meeting, and there's lots of discussion about, you know, is it better to have more water early, more water late? What happens if we, you know, what do we have to do to make sure we just have water till Halloween, like, which was the case last year, right? So, yeah, very good conversations with them about that are almost exclusively based on environmental flow needs, not on human consumption needs.
Thanks. Just because some of the feedback we get from the public is very much making sure we're meeting certain thresholds, I guess you could say, for the environment. So just make sure that folks are aware that is part of the conversation. It's not just a strictly mathematical, here's how much water we have, ergo. No. Thank you very much, Mr. Walters. Any further questions for Mr. Walters? Councillor Grenz, please.
Thank you. Just one more question, more general. To what extent are landowners who are part of the watershed involved in conversations around all this stuff?
That's a good question. So as you all know, all the land at high elevation in our watersheds is owned by Mosaic, with the exception of our 5 square kilometers that we own around the dam. I don't think they've been involved in any of these conversations. Snanawas has been involved in it in previous years, but I can't think of a time when Mosaic's been at the table. Yeah.
Anything further or? Oh, sorry, Mayor O'Brien just beat you to it.
Yeah, go ahead. Through the chair to Murray, what about the water license users that are pulling from the Englishman River? Is there any data that suggests that they are actually withdrawing water as per the license, the amount of water? Do we have any data? Is anybody actually tracking that? And do we actually have an accurate? Because I know when we've had the RDN presentations, it said this information is not exactly accurate. You know, the little blue dots is what I was talking about. Is anybody actually aware of that? Because, you know, that has a huge impact if there's drawdowns from the water licenses all the way down before it hits, as we are measuring devices at the Orange Bridge. There's a lot of usage pulling out of that. Is there any monitoring of that, what's going on, Murray? Because, you know, I've seen quite a bit of extra growth in that area of people that are pulling out of the river. And I'm just wondering if some of the drawdown is been affected by water license holders.
So we did have that conversation last year when we talked with the province about the POR and things like that. And obviously they don't share all that data with us, but they were able to say a couple of things, if my memory serves me correctly, that there are very few surface water allocations on Englishman River. I don't know that they gave us a number, but they said there's very few and they're not significant surface water allocations. Yeah. So essentially we have the only significant surface water allocation from the river.
With our intake.
They do not contemplate water withdrawal from residential wells, of which there are quite a number there.
Yes.
But they're, again, in the groundwater aquifer that's related to the river, and not exclusively the river, but, you know, the aquifer is primarily responsible for supplying base flow to that river once the snow melts.
Right.
So they're intimately connected, but I don't think the province can say that they have a really good idea what the withdrawal is from the aquifer from the private wells that are there. And there's only, I think there's 6, I might be wrong, don't quote me on this, but I think there's 6 wells that are licensable under the groundwater licensing regs directly close to the river. And 2 of them are the RDN wells for River's Edge subdivision. And there's another water system in there. So there's not many commercial water users in the Englishman River other than us. I guess I would summarize that. And we don't know who they are. The province said that they've checked it out, so we'll take them at face value on that.
Recognize, and if I may follow up, recognizing that the surface water usage is one aspect of measuring, but the wells along the Englishman River, as you know, the base flow is actually what's supplying those wells. A lot of the base flow from the Englishman River. So if there's no base flow, those wells are not going to be performing very well with abundance anyways if we don't have it. So what I'm suggesting is that with the dam actually supplying a lot of that base flow and the drought conditions and so forth, those wells are dependent on actually the flow that we're letting go from the dam.
It's not quite that simple.
Is it?
No, because there's a couple of different aquifers at play there. And particularly on the south side of the river, there's 3 aquifers stacked one on top of the other.
Okay.
And depending on what aquifer you're in, there either is or there isn't a lot of transmission between the aquifer and the riverbed.
Okay.
And it's a different aquifer on the, I'll call it the Parksville side of the river.
Right.
So it's not as simple as that. They're also quite deep, some of them.
The wells?
Some of the aquifers. So
okay.
People are potentially have residential wells and aquifers that don't have a lot of transmission to the aquifers there. I'm not a hydrogeologist, but it's not as simple as saying those guys are taking base flow from the river. It's not that straightforward. I mean, you have to make the assumption that they're all kind of connected in some possible way, but you can't make a tight connection from one to the other.
I would suppose that the data would be indicated by how much water we're releasing from the dam and how much water is actually going underneath the Orange Bridge.
Yeah, that's how we calculate
that measurement.
Yeah, that's how we calculate base
flow.
Right?
What does that variable look like?
Right.
And how much of that has been, gone into the environment itself, you know, actually feeding the aquifers, you know, so.
Yeah.
And how much is actually getting down to the estuary, which we're trying to get the water to, you know, the estuary to maintain that habitat.
Yeah, there's lots of things at play there. I mean,
Yeah.
there's simple evaporation from the river. That's a factor. There's evapotranspiration from all the trees that are growing in that area. There's lots of things that are happening.
Right.
So, you know, our sort of simple math of this is what we're releasing from the dam and this is what we're measuring at the river and this is what we're taking out at our treatment plant.
Right.
That's how we come up with what the base flow is,
Yeah.
basically. And that's just, I mean, it's better than some rivers, no doubt about that. So.
Right. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
And Councillor Grenz did raise his hand a moment ago. So do you still have a question, Joel? Okay. Director Rogers? No? Okay. I can't really think of too much beyond that. So I assume then we're finished that portion, which brings us then directly to adjournment. Motion to adjourn. Mayor O'Brien, Councillor Grenz, all in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Yeah, don't forget it, Scott. Yeah, thanks for your help. Good job. Yeah, he's.
No, I'll give them another minute. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the June 27th, 2024 Englishman River Water Services Board meeting. The board recognizes the people of the Coast Salish First Nations and their traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. So with respect to today's agenda, do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the agenda be approved? As presented? Moved by Mayor O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Grenz. Any errors or omissions? No. All those in favor? Any opposed? See none opposed. The agenda is approved. Adoption of the minutes of the English River Water Service Management Board meeting held November 9th, 2023. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the minutes of the English River Water Board meeting be adopted? Moved by Councillor Grenz, seconded by Mayor O'Brien. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, those minutes are adopted. Under number 4 within today's agenda, we have presentations. The first presentation by Mr. Vanderhorst from MNP. And Corey, if you don't mind presenting your audit comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello again. I will take you through a quick summary of the financial statements. Again, before I start, a big thank you to city staff, Marley and the finance team for going through the audit process with us again this year. You do have both a draft set of financial statements and an audit findings letter. The key item in the audit findings letter this year being a clean audit opinion and the materiality amount of $1.2 million, which is used to drive our audit testing. That's calculated as a percentage of the asset value there that's being managed. For the Englishman River Water Service, the end of 2023 balance sheet or statement of financial position shows the tangible capital assets, the intake water plant transmission lines, just over $43 million. So there's about $30,000 of spending on the capital throughout the year at the intake and the plant. So very minor capital for 2023. There is a $300,000 net amount to be received from the regional district and the city. And then on the next page, on the operations for 2023, you can see expenses a little bit up from the prior year, $1,367,000. The prior year is $1,355,000. Some of those categories there shift a little bit. So maintenance up about $53,000, operations down, and administration up, but overall very consistent on the expenditure side of things. And the regional district and the city contribute their $1,597,000 in to cover those costs. So at the end of the year, a $43.3 million accumulated surplus. That's the $43 million of capital assets and water plant and other assets being managed, and the $300,000 that will be transferred over from the two participating city and the regional district. I'll stop there. It's a really quick financial statement, but happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Are there any questions? No, it appears not. So,
Okay.
but you said the I know it's a clean audit opinion, but the significant amount was 1.3 million.
Yes, $1.2 million is the materiality number
Yeah.
that's used to drive our audit testing. So that's about 3% of the $40 million of assets. If we found anything that we didn't agree with, I can't give you a clean audit opinion if it's larger than 1.2 million. But there's no adjustments. There's no unusual items found in our testing this year. The $1.2 million with the level of activity this year, so at $1.3 million of expenses and only about 30,000 in capital. We didn't look at a lot of the capital, but we spent some time looking at those expenses and testing some of the invoices and things and some of the payroll costs coming over and making sure that those are recorded appropriately. But no concerns on the financial statement side of things.
Okay, thank you. And I'm
Thank you.
assuming like with the Arrowsmith Water Service, you had good cooperation from Parksville.
Absolutely. They're very helpful. We really appreciate all the work that they do to put together the financial statements and go through the audit process with us.
Okay, thank you very much. And certainly thanks to you for the audit review, and thanks to the Parksville finance team and operating team for keeping us on the straight and narrow. So
Great. Thank you.
so do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the English River Water Service audited financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2023 be received for information? Moved by Councillor Gren, seconded by Mayor O'Brien. And secondly, that the 2023 audited financial statements be accepted, presented, and approved. So, all those in favor? Thank you very much. That motion is carried. Thanks, Corey. Number 5, reports. Mr. Doiron, could you please present the ERWS operations update? And thanks for doing this on such short notice, and we certainly do appreciate your recent position, and we respect your presentation. So thank you.
Okay, so the Englishman River Water Service Water Treatment Plant Operations Update for June 2024. So this is our consumption. We got the 5 years, the purple line. Parksville is the orange line. RDN is the yellow, and the water treatment plant is the blue. So you're going to notice a spike in the RDN. They've been having some maintenance issues in the news, but we don't mind pitching in. We're capable of pitching in to help them out along the way until they fix up their maintenance issues. Again, here's the consumption. They're in June, they spiked up, and it usually is this time of year that they spike up, but it's a little higher because of those maintenance issues they've been having. Projects, operations, and maintenance. Projects, the 5-year fish monitoring program is in the 3rd year. I believe they were out there in April. They started doing their monitoring again. The water use planning and management study, RFP, has been created. Magic integration with the fixed sim software. This is the part of the SCADA system. The city also just got TELUS monitoring. So if there are attacks on our SCADA, TELUS will let us know when it's happening. And it's just a tool that the city's using to help identify if there are attacks happening. The caustic tank replacement project's being reviewed for award. And we want to do this in the fall or winter when our low flows are happening. I know it's been a process, but we want to make sure we get it right. And the right time to do it is fall, winter, when we have those low flows. We don't have to depend on the water plant as much. We can rely on the wells. The chemical safety room audit is ready to go. I've been in initial contact with the lowest bidder to make sure everything is they're still on board, and we should be awarding that fairly soon. Operation maintenance, the waste pump pedestal replacement to address leakage issue. So this is the tank the waste tank in the water plant where we have a submersible pump is seated. And if it doesn't seat correctly, it does a lot of things. It doesn't push out as much water as it can, but it's also hard on the motor. It's a huge job. We're still talking to the chief water operator, and we're getting some opinions on how to tackle this. And again, this is probably going to be a winter project or late fall winter project when where we don't have to rely as much on the water plant and the wells can pick up the slack. As I talked to you before about the RDN having a few issues in their maintenance, and again, the water plant can pick up and help the noose when they have issues like this. Further optimization of the strainer flushing to prevent plugging and increased downtimes. This is a constant battle because of the storm events we have. The operations team is doing their best, but this strainer does get plugged. And we're going to be continually working on this issue until we have another plan for pretreatment. Again, here's the fish monitoring program. The last 2 years, there's been no issues. Everything is supposed to be, there's been no impact, I should say no issues, but there has been no identified impact on the fish in the river because of the intake. And I'll take any questions if there are, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So any questions? Mayor O'Brien.
Yep. Oh, sorry. Back or front?
Forward.
This one here. There we go. Yeah. Through the chair, if Murray wants to chime in too, but me and Murray talked about this before the meeting. So they had the initial PLC valve failure, and now there's a second issue with their filter media, which I believe Murray said it was another week or so before they get it.
Murray, do you mind coming down to the mic?
I could take you through all the gory details if you want, but in early June, we had a control valve failure. And it's a control valve was identified in our annual maintenance as something that needed to be replaced, and it failed before we had a chance to replace it. So it took us a week or so to hack together sort of a thing to run through, because the delivery time, we're waiting for the thing to get delivered, a new one anyways. But we got a hack together on that about a week later. And we went to start up the plant, and our programmable logic controller, which is the brains of the control system, died, which is not supposed to happen. Those things are supposed to be like NASA reliable. You're supposed to replace them when they get old, not when they fail. So we're pretty disappointed in that. We managed to hodgepodge something together for that, and we got back up and running on the 20th of June. Day before yesterday, we were seeing some significant changes in our water quality from the plant. And we took the plant down to see if we could figure that out. It's much simpler than the ERWS water treatment plant. Looks like we've had some sort of backwash failure, probably related to the PLC failure. And as a consequence, we're going to have to replace all of the media in that filter ahead of time. So that work will be scheduled for a few weeks from now, because the stuff comes from California. But we hope to have it back up and running later today or tomorrow at the latest. An interesting note about that is, the Nanaimo Water Service can produce about 1 megaliter a day of water. That's it. It's how much water we can get out of our wells. You know, in our treatment plant, the ERWS treatment plant is around 16, let's say, nameplate, which we haven't yet needed. So it's quite reassuring to me and obviously to Bob and to all the other people who live in the news that, you know, the joint venture facility has more than enough capacity to backstop us when we break down. So that's been a really good thing. And I think it's also set up really well, you know, the way that our joint venture agreement is set up, that, you know, we use more water when it's available and we pay for it. So, you know, we're paying, obviously for the last month, we'll be paying 36% of the operating costs of the plant, as opposed to whatever it was the month before. So it's really showing its value right now.
Yeah. Thanks, Marie. You may do more than one
okay.
follow-up. Yeah.
No, sorry, could you repeat the question? Sorry, through the chair. So through the chair, no, the caustic tank that has to be replaced is not being used. So right now they're using totes. So it's a lot more chemical handling on for the staff. So when you start dealing with handling the chemicals a lot more, you have increased the risk to the workers. So we want to get this done ASAP, but the right time to do it is when the plant is at its low consumption or demand. And that's a question the guys have. They said, okay, well, are we gonna do the safety audit and then replace the tank, or are we gonna replace the tank and then do the safety audit? I think we should get the safety audit done. And if there is an issue like we're not seeing that the plan for the replacement, that maybe we could take a step back and, you know, relook at it. Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah, exactly. That's where all your cleaning water and your backwash water goes. We're not sure what's going on because this should last 20 years. Usually it's what happens is the pump goes down on rails and then it sits right up against a pipe. So it create that suction. And usually when you like give her the chain a little bit of a pull or tug, she'll seep back. That's not happening. So we're gonna take that or take it out of service. So then we had to stop backwashing and we don't know what we're in for. We're thinking about maybe putting a drone or a camera down there and trying to see before we take it down what the issue is. It's not seating properly, no.
Mayor O'Brien, do you mind turning your mic on?
I thought I have. It's pretty rough environment for that pump anyways, with the contaminated water.
With the chemicals, yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I can see that being a problem. So it's just to get the wastewater out of the plant now.
That's all that's for us to get the wastewater to the geobags.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Joel, any questions for Simon? No. Okay, thank you very much. So, do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation that the presentation from Simon Doiron regarding the Yukon River Water Service operations update be received for information? Moved by Councillor Grenz, seconded by Mayor O'Brien. Any errors or omissions? Any questions with respect to that previously? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, thank you very much. That is carried. Thanks very much, Mr. Doiron. So With respect to that, ladies and gentlemen, do I have a mover and a seconder to adjourn? Moved by Mayor O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Grenz. All those in favor? So that is carried. So we are